we're getting a better understanding of, which is also our focus, of how the physical interventions that we make in cities, if we, for instance, design an urban neighborhood in one way or another, how that has a concrete economic or social impact. So these things have traditionally been very difficult to do, to be able to estimate or predict that if you let's say design a neighborhood for 10,000 people this way or that way, what are the consequences going to be? And by using data that describes existing environments, we're able to calibrate models to get a better sense of how they actually work, and then use that data projectively ahead to put it into new contexts with new circumstances and constraints, but basically be able to have a better understanding of what the impact of our work is. The points, I think there was perhaps 2 points that I tried to emphasize in the panel. One was that in order to develop and support the community of innovators who develop both technologies and solutions for city environments and communities, one of the key things that I think the public sector can do is to make access to data readily available, to really put it out there without any barriers, without any costs, to make it available at the fingertips of people. So sometimes what happens is that such entrepreneurship is supported through competitions where for just that competition something will be released. I think that's fundamentally the wrong model. I think that having information about the city, that every public sector collects information about the city, just online and available at their fingertips at any point in time, is one of the key starting points for any entrepreneur that comes up with an idea to actually realize that without going through a lot of red tape. And so there's countless examples of that happening in the West that I think can be utilized in many cities here as well. And second point that I try to emphasize is that I think the use of ICT in a community context really has to put into context both the sort of physical and social context where these technologies are being applied, and that sometimes technology is not necessarily the best solution to a problem, that sometimes problems can be addressed in different ways using planning or using economic policy or other social policy strategies, and that in the best case scenarios where we have both technology, good planning, good community involvement working together, that we hardly have a smart community in the world where it's only one of these aspects, that all of them have to come together. We can't have a terrible physical environment and excellent technology and have a smart community. Nor can we have a great physical neighborhood without any services and without any technology behind it that could compete in today's world. I think we really have to look at them together. And when we talk about smart communities, I think we have to move beyond just discussing technology to also discussing where it's being implemented, who's using it, and how the environment where it's implemented can support it. And I think there's the most competitive places on earth today do all of that very well. Not just any one of them alone, but to all of that together. Those are the places where most of the world's talent's flocking to. Perhaps 2 things. One, I hope that people will be thinking deeply, profoundly about ways in which to instill this sense of capability in the regular high school kids, university students, and young people who are behind this economy. That what I've gotten from the forum is that there seems to be a barrier to get people to believe they can do something, and having sort of self censorship in some ways, to having maybe the bravery or just the belief that they can actually succeed. And I think that there's ways in which policy can help support that, which incentives can help support that, but also just the cultural and social media that can just create a whole reputation around being not just a successful entrepreneur, but somebody who's also got some community goals and does good for society, environment, and business at the same time. So I'd like some of the discussions, I guess, to revolve around what are these concrete policy incentives and concrete interventions that can be done now to move towards that. And second, maybe closer to my own professional work, I'd like people to think beyond technology and see what in their own communities could do to make those communities stronger. And when I hear the term smart communities, I really think about it rather holistically across different things, not just technologically. I don't imagine that every grandmother would need to use Twitter and Facebook to be on a community group's webpage, but to have empowerment and to have opportunities within community to fulfill one's potential and one's capacity. So set up a business, it might not be a technological business, or to get in contact with the right people to do something together and things like that. And I think those are oftentimes non-technological and require just community participation and thinking together. So I hope that some of this will start to emerge in communities, or people themselves will start trying to identify strategies in which they could come together behind an idea and maybe not necessarily rely on government to do it for them, but to see what they can do in their own neighborhoods and communities.